You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Claret and Blue podcast. Once again, post-match review. I'm James, that's John, and we're back after Matt and Dan graciously jumped on after the match to entertain you after a 1-1 draw with Brentford FC, newly promoted Brentford, of course, Dean Smith's old hunting ground, and Thomas Franks. We've had a few encounters with them over the years under different guises with different players in different leagues, John. But I wanted to know how your initial thoughts of that game before we get into things.
Yeah, to be honest, just the start of the season in general, it's been very disrupted, very much not the way that Dean Smith would have liked to start the season. So I think every game you got to kind of take into consideration. But I thought basically fair play to Brentford. I thought they were very good on the day. There's not much more than what we could have done. I thought, having a 17-year-old in midfield, plenty of players out through injuries and COVID, your vice captain and your captain as well. It's hard to analyse the game really because of so many different circumstances. But still unbeaten at home. Only 2 games gone, obviously, but it's another point on the board at the end of the day. I think Smith after the international break will just look at where we are and almost start the season from there, if you like. But in terms of the game, I thought we were okay in patches in the first half. I thought, like Svel Ghazi, we were, stars. Certainly could have forced an advantage. Danny Ings having his strike inside about the 6-yard box, wasn't it? To take a 2-1 lead, but obviously good save by David Raya. But no, ultimately, I think it's another point on the board. Again, there's not much we can take from this. I think Tyrone Mings before the game saying things like European football probably is an aspirational, aim for this season. Maybe that sort of calmed the ambitions amongst the squad, yes. Or maybe that's a good thing, almost something to aim for towards the back end of the season. Almost flip last season into this season, almost, a slow start maybe, but then pick it up towards the end. We'll see, but ultimately, another point on the board. Decent showing. Nice to see Chukwuemeka get his debut as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Villa saying now. I think you've heard 4 different members of the squad saying you can't be too highs with the highs, too lows with the lows. It does make sense. As frustrating as it is for as a fan, as yourself, writing about the club. It is frustrating to because it seems like almost an excuse. But look, we're 3 games in. It's a clean slate heading into the international break. We've had the loss, had the win, we've had the draw. We can regroup and go forward. We haven't had the full strength squad as well. I think that's exemplified in this Brentford match. Didn't have your first choice midfielder in John McGinn. Arguably didn't have your second in Jacob Ramsey. Didn't have of course, you don't have Jack Grealish. You don't have the guy on the left wing is coming to, we don't have Leon Bailey. And you don't have Tyrone Mings as well. And you have to say there's a lot of difficulty there for Villa on a match day. And Brentford have taken the game to teams this season, beat Arsenal day 1 in the Premier League. They opened the doors against us, scored early doors. So difficult match. They had the physicality as well. So, you can say, look, it's newly promoted Brentford at home. We should be beating them. I totally agree. We shouldn't be losing at Villa Park. We should be doing our best. Teams should be coming to Villa Park hoping for the draw, in all honesty, with the atmosphere we can create there. But they made it very difficult for Aston Villa, and you can only play the game that's in front of you. And they made, that they enforced their plan on Aston Villa, and we had to react, John. And I thought we reacted okay. We got the goal, but the win was there with Ollie Watkins late on as well. We could have pushed a bit more to make those chances and asked a few more questions of Brentford, despite the height differences, the differences in physicality, the difference in a gel team that's had that plan for the whole year. Even with our rotated team, I felt we could have done a little bit more there, John.
Yeah, no, I agreed. I think you mentioned there, they're going behind, like what Brentford did against Arsenal. You would have thought, Arsenal will come back into this one now. And, Emil Smith-Rowe and, different players for Arsenal certainly came close. But we came close. Obviously, we scored Buendia, and he was almost that. I thought the crowd really got behind the team as soon as Brentford scored, almost pushed the ball into the north end. But yeah, I think after the game, speaking to Thomas Frank as well, he was almost disappointed that Brentford didn't win. So that kind of tells us what Brentford's ambitions are this season. They're no mugs, Brentford. I don't think they'll be in a relegation scrap this season. Even though a lot of people tipped them, obviously all 3 promoted teams to get relegated this season. There's always one that will surprise teams. And to be honest, Brentford didn't really surprise me in the way that they've started this season. Buendia's goal was the first goal that Brentford have conceded this season. Playing Palace, who've obviously got good attacking options, and obviously Arsenal as well. So I think that's a positive, and it's positive that we scored about 7 minutes after Tony scored as well. And for a Brentford team that are very well organised, well disciplined as well, I thought to get back at them almost right away was certainly a good thing. Sharon would say we can kind of capitalise on that at least in the second half, but it felt like a very disjointed second half in my opinion. There was a lot of niggly fouls. Obviously, Ezri Konsa going down for the last 10 minutes. So there wasn't too much in the way of goal scoring opportunities apart from obviously Watkins. And obviously Danny Ings had that little moment where I think Buendia slipped him in, but he couldn't quite get his feet right. But ultimately, no, I think there's more than enough positives to take from the game, and certainly coming back from a goal down, that's something that Villa haven't done very often in previous years, especially against a team high on confidence like Brentford. And, it doesn't really matter that they've been newly promoted. We know ourselves what belief a team can have when you go through the playoffs and getting promoted as well, and that's what they had in abundance at Villa Park. So I don't think Villa fans can necessarily be disappointed with just a point. As I said, that's the first goal Brentford have conceded this season. So it's certainly positives to take after the international break, and hopefully we can just start our season from there. Really.
Yeah, would a negative be the performance then rather than the result? Because I think we can be happy with the point. But in the manner that it happened, I feel like we'll come on to the goals in particular. Tony's goal, obviously, we need to talk about. But I feel like the performance, we were. I know it was Chukwuemeka's first, Premier League start. The age, we were missing the players, but in terms of performance, I just thought we weren't there, and we had to adapt right away. Brentford got us right away. We had to move Young inside. We had to make some adjustments up front. That was a situation caused us by an away team, a newly promoted away team, and with all due respect. Brentford, I know, can ask the questions of us because of the difference in physicality, because of the belief they have, because of the results they've had as well, and the defence, their application of defence, in the first 3 games of this season. I just felt the performance could have been better, and I don't know what in particular could have been better. I just thought the intensity was lacking, and really pleased, John, that we bounced back when Dio unlocked them. We got the goal. We got, as you say, the first goal that they've conceded all season as a newly promoted team. So brilliant. I just thought we lacked that, intensity. We lacked that, get up and go, and we had to be provoked into a reaction. Even then, was the reaction good enough in your eyes?
Yeah, I think the reaction was good enough. Because if Danny Ings scores his goal, then it's a different game, and all of a sudden, the whole end's bouncing, and we've got a different sort of belief in this. One hell of a cauldron for Brentford to then come back themselves. But I just think in general, when you're missing Tyrone Mings, who's conducting it all from the back, and even someone like Jacob Ramsey, just as number 10, because I think that's exactly how we can unlock teams, by having that creative force behind Danny Ings. With all due to respect to kind of Chukwuemeka, as a 17-year-old, we can't expect him to kind of take the game by the scruff of the neck straight away. And I thought that was lacking, having that free midfield without someone directly behind Danny Ings, maybe linking with El Ghazi and Buendia on the flanks, because they didn't seem to have too much of the ball, at least in the second half, in my opinion. In the first half, we looked lively. As I say, straight after the goal, we looked like we could almost flip it inside about 30 minutes. But we didn't. Fair play to Brentford. I thought they were, again, they kind of quieted us down really after Danny Ings' chance, which was obviously good save by David Ray. But I think, the reaction was good enough, but ultimately the performance wasn't. But I think, if you compare the managers after the game, talking to Thomas Frank and Dean Smith, Smith was certainly the happier, which surprised me in a little way. But at the same time, that's a raw reaction after the game. I think Smith was just happy to see the back end of it, whereas Thomas Frank was much more prickly, should we say, and certainly wanted to win that game. But ultimately, I think we can judge the performance. Of course, we can. But when you've got, say, John McGinn not there, your vice captain, your captain not playing, and players still coming back from injuries, Matt Targett, still getting up to speed. Different players. Buendia only had an injury a couple of weeks ago as well. So by no means are we a fully fit squad, a fully energised squad either. If you took these last 3 games in isolation, Watford away, Newcastle at home, and Brentford at home, you'd probably hope for 9 points. But because they're the first 3 games of the season, I think you've got to take a different outlook on it, really. But I think there's parts of the performance Dean Smith will be happy with, but certainly, I think as you say, James, there's certainly bits there that need to be worked on.
Yeah, it almost feels, it can feel like almost friendly football at the first few games of the season. And across the Premier League, there's been issues for not just Aston Villa. You can see Arsenal rock bottom. Tottenham have a 9-point lead over Arsenal. I know it's only 3 games into the season, but some people would have said that was coming. But there's issues for teams aplenty at the start of the season. So Aston Villa aren't alone in that. It's just, I think fans wanted to see a new era, engage really quickly, but I think realism could be a rocky start to the season. It hasn't been the greatest start to the season, but look, we're only 3 games in. International break to go, we can reset, regroup. Hopefully we aren't too affected by what's going to go on in that international break, but I guess we'll come to that. But I think that the most disappointing thing about the performance was conceding that type of goal, John, because it comes from we've been buzzing about the set pieces, and I know it isn't directly from a set piece, but it's still that set piece situation. Still had your big defenders up there, and I know it brings a question of, do we leave these guys to mark even Tony? Do we go at Brentford and pressure him after that first set piece was cleared to the side? Even Tony's unmarked in the box, and I know it's a back heel that kind of finds that space for him. Their main guy, the guy who's going to get the goals from this season, the most goals, Premier League caliber striker, is unmarked in the box, and it's all too easy for him to score, John.
Yeah, it's a simple case of ball watching, almost schoolboy stuff, wasn't it? You can allow little errors like these over the course of the season, of course you can, but it's disappointing when it happens inside the first 10 minutes of the game, 7 minutes of the game. Obviously didn't get the ball cleared. The ball comes across, a little flick, and then Tony, to be fair to him, great finish, but that's what you got to expect. The guy scores 30 goals last season, didn't he?
He's going to need to explain that celebration as well. What was that? Did he throw up a Z?
He certainly did.
Look like it, mate. I didn't watch it back because I have watched the goal back. I just thought I can't be looking at the celebration, because I hate it. Yeah, people get really wound up when it's the only place I can go to celebrate in front of the whole end if you score. But it's just it always gets me really wound up for unreasonably.
Yeah, he knew that as well, didn't he? I think his agent's a blue nose, so he put up the Z. But hey, the guy's going to score goals this season. It's a shame he had to spoil the moment really for himself. But I quite liked him before then. I think. Going back to the goal, though, just touching on the set piece coach, Austin McPhee. Smith said himself that he's not just come in for attacking set pieces; is also defensive. But ultimately, I don't think there's too much blame you can put on him there because it's ball watching. No one's picked up the 30-goal striker in the middle of the.
Yeah, it's not like Austin McPhee's went, lads, leave either Tony free. It's just a game situation, isn't it?
Exactly, and he would have wanted to defend that himself. Austin times on the edge of the technical area, but no, again, sloppy goal, sloppy error. But is it? I don't want to try and excuse it, but is it to be expected at this early stage of the season when we haven't got our defenders back? Axel Tuanzebe is obviously making his 3rd debut for the club now. But again, schoolboy stuff. You need to get the ball clear on the first stage, let alone the ball coming back in, the flick on and the goal. So disappointing in the way we conceded. But again, just to go down the other end and find the space, carve them open, and score ourselves. That's a positive, and it almost takes that sloppy error out of the game almost. But to then not go and win the game, I guess it just magnifies their goal, doesn't it?
Yeah. Do you feel like we lacked that kind of organisation? Clearly we did, because it's organisation that cost us it. But with Tyrone Mings obviously absent due to that rib injury picked up, I think Dean Smith said last week, but he had padding in the last game in that area. So, who knows? But with him missing the match, and look, Ezri Konsa, Ashley Young, Axel Tuanzebe, Emi Martinez, very, very vocal when they want to be. When that goal went in, it was just fingers were being pointed in different directions. So either a lot went wrong or simple things went wrong. But at the end of the day, they scored from a situation where Villa could have done better. All pie in the sky stuff. Do Villa concede that with Tyrone Mings?
It's obviously hard to say, but he would have probably been throwing his body at the ball, wouldn't he? We know what Tyrone Mings brings to the squad now. So the thing of, you don't know what you have until you lose it almost. And that's what Tyrone Mings kind of showed by not being at the game on a Saturday afternoon. But does the goal go in? We don't know that. But he's certainly a massive influence on the squad, especially in defensive sequences, as you said, from set plays, and obviously just open play more generally. He's the one play you can always hear, and we know how loud he was during the whole 90 minutes when there were no fans. So yeah, big miss. Hopefully he can recover after the international break. I'm not too sure if he's going to go away with England now. because of his broken rib. We'll see. Dean Smith said that we gave him injections, we gave him all sorts just to make sure he was pain free, but he had too much discomfort on the Friday. But yeah, clearly a big miss, and that goal probably epitomises what he brings to the team almost, isn't it? A big block and a vocal presence, organisation, as you say, is a massive miss, really.
I mean, that being said, if Villa might not concede that one, but then there's even Tony latching onto like casual back pass, so we don't know what would have happened. But that isn't a slight to Konza and Tuanzebe, because I think in difficult circumstances, Konza led by exception. Tuanzebe, I can't remember him putting too much of a foot wrong. I remember him getting beaten to the ball up, but I also remember him making up for that and giving that clearing block and not allowing Brentford any dangerous situations. To my mind, was that the best chance Brentford had to score from? And they buried it. They didn't have any better chances. What do you think?
From memory, yeah, I would have thought so. There wasn't too many clear-cut opportunities, and I don't think Emi Martinez has been particularly worked too much in any of these in any of the games so far. In terms of Newcastle had the one clear opportunity with Callum Wilson, and obviously he's come out and given away the penalty for that Newcastle game. But in terms of shot stopping, there hasn't been too much for him to do. It's either been past him before he knows it, or not too much work. But again, that's probably credit to Villa. I think Brentford they set up not to lose the game, but so Thomas Frank was very annoyed that they didn't take 3 points, and that clearly shows you that they're always looking on the front foot, always looking to pounce on counter attacks and create opportunities themselves. Sergio Canos as well said after the game about how Frank always wants them to take the game to the opposition, score goals, create opportunities. But yeah, Villa, fair play. They didn't really leave the back door open on too many other occasions, apart from the opening 7 minutes, which again that's what's such a shame, because it's the opening spell of the game. You want to be going into the game fully focused, but it didn't quite seem that we were.
Yeah, I feel like if you're perhaps more awake, and I know Brentford made it hard. They had the two kind of Mbuemo and even Tony, in my eyes, fit in a good chunk of Premier League teams, starting for a fair few of those as well, and pinning that defensive line back. And it is a debutant first. I know Tuanzebe played against Barrow, but it's the first time that we've had these two centre back in a Premier League match. So. There's difficulty there. There's difficulties in the midfield. There's difficulties up top with the rotation that had to be made after that goal, because Ashley Young was brought into kind of a flexible position, I would say. Did you catch what he was doing? Because to my eyes, it looked like he was lining up in defensive midfield, then box to box, then as a 10. It's all over the place. Ashley Young was after starting on the flank.
Yeah, when you was going to say when the team came out, you'd presume that Buendia would take a number 10 role, and El Ghazi and Young would be at least occupying the flanks. Which one? I'm not too sure. But even after the goal, it looked straight away that it's an Ashley Young in the centre of midfield alongside Douglas Luiz, and obviously your 17-year-old Carney Chukwuemeka. But I think Carney himself was always pushing on. Wherever I noticed him, his average position was always just behind Danny Ings. From goal kicks and dead ball situations. So clearly Smith wanted him to push on and didn't want to play him almost like a 2 with Douglas Luiz. So for Ashley Young to play there, to be honest, I don't really think he put a foot wrong. He's got all the attributes to play in that role. He's up and down. He's energetic. He wants to get forward. He's clearly got quality. So I don't think he had a bad game, Ashley Young, at all. But I think it's certainly almost like a nod to what Smith thinks of Chukwuemeka in terms of can't see him playing alongside Douglas Luiz as a 2. If he's going to play in the Premier League this season, it'll be in that number 10 role. Maybe coming in for Jacob Ramsey. Obviously, we've got Buendia that I'll presume will play number 10, depending on where you choose to play Ollie Watkins and Leon Bailey during the season. Ashley Young, for me, played really well. Again, he's an experienced head. He rarely makes mistakes, and he was certainly good for Chukwuemeka on the day, and Smith said that after the game as well. Fair play to Chukwuemeka, who didn't let anyone down, and he's certainly going to learn from his peers. And on a match day, who better to play alongside you than Ashley Young, 20 years older as well, which is crazy.
Truly a passing of the torch, really, isn't it? It was good to see Chukwuemeka. It wasn't like a blinding performance, but there was some things that clearly need to be fixed. But to be playing that age in a Premier League game, and you're putting in a 7 out of 10, I feel like that's a great start. You can only get better. Even in the match against Barrow, exemplary. And those are the games where Villa usually struggle. And look at, you had Cameron Archer as well, playing a blinder. Philogene Bidace playing a blinder as well. Those are the games where Villa rotate and really struggle. And the fact that they look so senior and so experienced in that game, and one of them can then come into the Premier League and play a decent performance. I know it's not the 10 out of 10 that people, want to see constantly to replace like a Jack Grealish type, but it's a great start for him, I feel. Not like the best start, not the Wayne Rooney, remember the name. It's good enough for Aston Villa, John, I feel.
Yeah, I think you make a great point there as well, James. Between the Barrow game and this game, the only difference is, of course, the quality of the Premier League and also the speed. But for Chukwuemeka to stand out against Barrow, who are a very, very physical team in League Two, and we all know what League Two is about with all due respect to the division, to stand up and not be beat in that game, speaks an awful lot, and to then come into the Brentford game and not necessarily feel out of place. Always looking for the ball, comfortable. We want to take his time on the ball. Obviously he's going to be pickpocketed when he does that every now and again, but it's great to see that he has that confidence and self-confidence in his own ability. But to compare how he performed against Barrow in terms of standing out against properly, physical midfielders, much more experienced and probably wanted to just get his ankles all game, to a Brentford team that are very quick, very athletic themselves, and the game's being played at a much quicker tempo, and he didn't look particularly out of place throughout the 60 minutes that he got. I think that says an awful lot about him, because we know that in 2 years, if he continues to get this Premier League experience, he's going to be much sharper. He's going to be much more quicker with the ball, and that certainly bodes well. And maybe that's why Smith's kept him amongst the group this year instead of putting him out on loan. Because he knows that he can play in League Two, and he knows that he can play to that level and influence a game against much more experienced sides with much more physical players. So keep him in the Premier League, get him up to speed. Can he be quicker with the ball? Can he move on quicker? That's certainly what he'll want to do himself, Chukwuemeka. And it's certainly the player that we know that's in there. He's only 17. Like, if you think about it, it's crazy. He was 16 years old last year. It's mental. The guy's still a teenager. There's not much we can expect from him. But to put on a show that he did, I thought, bodes very well for the future, and fair play to him.
Yeah, I think Brentford were always going to bully him and target him, but I think he did as well as he could in the situation, and look forward to seeing him more. I look forward to seeing Jacob Ramsey back in the squad, and Aaron Ramsey as well on the bench. Says, and Cameron Archer as well was unlucky not to come on due to when Konza was forced off. So a lot to look forward to, actually. But do you feel that this solves a midfield problem that there appears to be at Aston Villa? There is no shortage of bodies to play these midfield roles. It just seems there's a shortage of specific abilities that Villa might seem to be missing. And we all know Nakamba can do a defensive job, but it looks like fans want to see not only a defensive midfielder, but someone who has an ability to play the ball, so it doesn't separate your team into two banks of defensive and attacking players. They want a specific midfielder. Yeah. But with Morgan Sanson, we have barely seen Conor Harahan's on the way out on loan to Sheffield United is the latest report. Villa aren't panic buying. I don't think that's the right word. They're not pushing as hard as people might want for a midfielder. Do you think that's down to what Dean Smith sees in not just Chukwuemeka, but Jacob Ramsey, Morgan Sanson and John McGinn, as well as Louise and Nakamba?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely down to what Dean Smith wants and what he already has. I think he's very trusting with the players you've just mentioned there: Marvelous Nakamba, Douglas Louise, John McGinn, and the rest of his squad in midfield. I don't see another player coming in, if I'm totally honest. I think if this is something that we wanted, we would have already done it. Because there's no shortage of them on the market, is there? Your likes of Anguissa, Chekdekore, other players too. Even not Anguissa, the Brian midfielder.
Bissouma,
of course, yeah. Maybe he's out of our league at the moment. Who knows? He's probably good enough to be playing in the Champions League. But yeah, I think if we wanted it, we would have had it by now. It's a debate if we need that, that's for sure. Certainly fans think that we do. But does that overload your midfield? Possibly so. And I think Craig Shakespeare said himself, he doesn't want to block the pathway for these youngsters. Because clearly we see so much in Conor Chukwuemeka. We see a lot in Jacob Ramsey and Aaron Ramsey. And maybe fans want instant European qualification, instant success. And if we look back again to what Tyrone Mings was saying, maybe this season isn't the European season, and maybe it's another building block to what's clearly a bright future ahead. for all the young players that we have. So again, I don't doubt that maybe in January, if we need something, we'll go after it. But I don't think the club really want to panic buy and bring someone in that they're not happy with. Whether fans are happy with it is a completely different, question. If Dean Smith doesn't want it, then the club aren't going to buy it, because we know where that gets us. From back in 2015, when Tim Sherwood wouldn't particularly want a certain player and the club would recruit them instead, and then your manager's left with a player that they don't know the quality of, or don't trust, perhaps. I'm not saying that would be the case this time around, of course, but we know that if Dean Smith would like a player, i.e. an Ollie Watkins or a Leon Bailey, then the club go out and get them. So I trust Dean Smith myself to make that decision. And as I say, for Craig Shakespeare as well, you just want to block that pathway for the young stars that we have. And these guys, Christian Purser said, best 16-year-old in the country, Carney Chukwuemeka last year. We're seeing what Jude Bellingham does at 16 and 17. If you give Carney a season in the Premier League, who knows what level he'll be at next year as well. So, I don't doubt the club have clearly got it in their mind that these young guys can go on the stage and perform.
Do you think it's a case of maybe trusting the plan then? Because maybe there's a feeling that Villa need something. There's a feeling that there might be they need a need for another addition, but you can't kind of discount Villa's recruitment ability and what it's done in the past and what it could do from now, and whether they trust in what they've got. They need to see Morgan Sanson play as well. They've bought essentially a summer signing early, and he hasn't even had the benefit of playing that much football early, which is a really odd one, because they did say Sanson was someone that was eyeing up for this summer. So they clearly knew a midfielder needed to be there, but whether Sanson's the right type to match what fans think the hole is in the squad is, I think, where the question marks are. But I feel like we could have been for a season of consolidation, but we haven't seen a full strength Villa, which is, exactly. A few games into the season, John, we haven't seen Leon Bailey play more than 30 odd minutes, probably even less than that against Watford. We haven't seen Morgan Sanson. We haven't seen Chukwuemeka develop into the player that I think we all know he's going to be. So there's plenty of question marks to be answered by football, to be fair. So, cards on the table. If a midfielder is offered tomorrow who fits the bill in what we think, someone who's got the defensive ability without sacrificing going forward, is it worth displacing Luiz, Nakamba, a pathway for Ramsey, Chukwuemeka, even a pathway for Sanson? Is it worth that? Because you look at the type of midfielders that we wanted, and Anguissa off to Napoli probably on a lot of money, with a potential for that European football straight away. That's not really there for Villa, is it? And it's doubtful from the noise they're putting out that there's even that opportunity for a midfielder to come in and take a starting role. I'd have to fight a lot of players for it.
Yeah, and I think the point being as well that we're probably not going to, if you bring in a midfielder, you're going to have to shift a couple, aren't you? And we're clearly not prepared to do that. Again, if the fans think that's right or wrong, that's their opinion. But the club have got their own opinion. If that's Dean Smith's outlook on his own squad, then I don't see how we can really argue with that. Nakamba only been at the club for 2 years, and whether fans have their own judgment on his capabilities or what he can do that the players can't. Again, that's up to them. But I think the main point is that there's so many youth players coming through the squad now, and they just don't want to block that pathway. And if the player that they want isn't available on the market, there's really not a whole lot the club can do about that, because the last thing they want to do is bring in a player and they don't adjust to the league as they first hoped, and they don't perform, and then that's another player on the books. In amongst the midfield ranks that already contain about 6 or 7 players. And you mentioned, James, there about Sanson. He's obviously had a rough couple of months himself with adjusting to a country, a new league, bringing his family over, which people seem to forget about sometimes. Footballers aren't robots. They come to a new country during COVID as well. He gets a long-term injury, so he hasn't worked out for him so far, Sanson. But that's nothing against his ability. And I'm sure that when he comes into the team, hopefully after the international break, he's fully back into the training now at Bodymoor Heath. So hopefully we can see what he's made of. And we know he's got quality. He was in the Champions League last year. We want players, or we've been linked with players that would like to play in the Champions League themselves, and we've just got one. So, again, let's reserve judgment on Sanson and wait to see how he plays when he's fully fit in a fully fit Aston Villa team as well. Because you say we haven't seen Ollie Watkins, we've only seen 10 minutes of him linking up with Danny Ings. We've barely seen Leon Bailey. We've only seen Buendia fit for 2 games. We haven't seen so many of the players as well. Tyrone Mings getting an injury, Bertrand Traore getting an injury. So we've been very unlucky at the start of the season, and that's no fault of our own players. So I think it's one of those where we get past the transfer window now. We can fully reset, fully concentrate on the season ahead. If we can make a European push, then brilliant. If not, then we can consolidate. And then I don't want to jump too far, but then you've got another summer transfer window to build if we need it. So I don't think we need to panic between the next 48 hours, basically.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of head scratchers at Villa. I don't want to spend the entire podcast speaking about transfer situation, but Frederick Gilbert, aimed at by Fulham and then Olympiacos on loan, and your right back covers already starting for Aston Villa on the wing, if not on the at left back. So plenty of questions, but I think with how Villa have been over the last year and the stuff that's obviously happened in the summer of the big departure, there's a lot of questions that probably need to be answered by football, and then we can raise them again in January. But you can't discount the fact that there are just so many questions that fans have over the transfers at the club. Not in a negative way, just like it feels obvious, but maybe it isn't. But I digress, because maybe a few seasons ago, the Villa of the past, they don't react so well to that even Tony goal. And there's a player that we brought in, Buendia, who spark, and Danny Ings as well, who got the assist, who spark that reaction. And instead of a game where you're looking, it's 1-0, potentially 2-0 if Villa don't get back into that game and kind of shut Brentford up a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's a game where Villa lose their footing in that transition. Whereas now we have that footing, and we've got the point that we probably didn't deserve. We got the win. Against Newcastle as well, we have got the 4 points to build on. Where there's questions, where we looked okay in patches, where we've looked bad in patches, but it's a sign Villa can move forward, I think, John. So Emi Buendia, new recruit, gets us back into the match. What did you make of the goal?
Really well taken goal from Emi Buendia. Yeah. He made it look easy, to be fair, because on the edge of the box, you're always crying out for player to shoot, and then he just takes out his stride and strokes it into the top corner, didn't he? Matty Cash as well was barking down the wing, wasn't he? Shouting at Buendia for a layoff, because he was in a really good position, and then that drags out Rico Henry, distracts the defenders from the ball, and then you say strokes the top corner. Brilliant goal, and that's just a glimpse of what Buendia can give us, because he hasn't had too much of the ball in his games for Villa so far. Haven't really seen too much of him, but if that's anything to go by, then we're in for a really good player, and that's first goal contribution. Plenty more to come, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a sign that recruitment worked. We got that goal. We bought the goal back against Brentford. We should have bought Rico Henry, just so he wasn't playing against us. We should have bought him as a left back cover, National Young, as the right back cover. Then all these questions would have been answered, mate. Feel like it was a dry game for me. I had no signal, so I just chilling at the pub beforehand and taking it all in, which was rare. Not to be glued to your phone and discussing the lineup and going a bit mad about it. But for me, the big kind of talking point for the match, not just the goals, match wasn't really here or there, was it? It didn't seem to get the flow that both teams would want. Maybe not so much Brentford, but definitely Villa, because the referee seemed to be a bit. I mean, I've got to stay professional here, but I was. You might notice my voice is a bit croaky, and because there was certain chants being aimed from my quarter towards the referee. You can't blame him for the result, but the match didn't have the flow that I felt we were all expecting these games to have. A lot of fouls are getting, frankly, not whistled because the flow of the match was being interrupted probably far too much in seasons gone by. Lessons have been learned probably from the Euros in the summer. But this one was probably the 2019-2020 of refereeing rather than the 2021 refereeing we've expected. It was stop-start. Things were being blown for that shouldn't have been blown for. Then things were being blown for that weren't. It was all over the place, in my opinion, John. And as our Aston Villa correspondent on the day, I assume you've got to remain more professional than me. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on the performance of the referee on the day.
Yeah, I think in general the rules, as you say, they're bringing in now, James. I think it's hard for referees in a way because it almost confuses it again. Because I think in the first half, when the crowd are fully behind, both teams, obviously two sets of fans. And I think a lot can go because players are very physical in the first half. It's all energetic, it's very frenetic, and I thought that really helped the game. 2 goals in the first 14 minutes. The ref was letting a lot go. But then it comes to the second half and players are a bit more tired. Fouls, in my opinion, look more obvious because if you're getting tripped running at half the speed you're probably running in the first half, it looks more obvious. And then more loose balls, more loose touches. So I think fouls more generally are more obvious to spot in the second half. But it was very stop-start, I thought. I think especially in the last 15 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
Apart from the Ollie Watkins chance that Villa had, that we really couldn't get that last 15 minutes push that you would normally get in front of a Holt end. We didn't really get that. We didn't get the luxury of it. And a lot of that was down to the referee, I thought. But he's refereed the game and how he sees fit. Were they fouls? Potentially they were, and it was a very niggly game, in all fairness. So I don't know if there's a whole lot we could say about the referee, but I think more generally it's just the rules that are quite hard to understand. Again, we want the game to flow more like it was at the Euros, but then a referee seems to take two outlooks on a game in the first half and the second half. There was certainly a lot of bookings. There probably should have been more bookings, in my opinion. But no, ultimately, it's a very niggly game, especially in the second half, and I think that was a large reason about why we couldn't take advantage in the end.
Yeah, disappointing. I think another disappointing note, of course, was the match ended with 8 minutes of injury time directly due to an injury to Ezri Konsa. I'm not sure we've heard a great deal about that, but he did walk off without aid. If the worst is confirmed, it looks like almost a masterstroke now to have signed in Axel Tuanzebe. And I know Pat's not on today, PGR Analytics, but it looks more likely that he might be filling in the short term at centre back rather than defensive midfield, so a more natural position for Axel. If touch wood, we don't want Ezri Konsa's injury to be a long term one because he's a pivotal part of the side at this point, John. But what do we know about Ezri Konsa?
Obviously, nothing from the club. Villa rarely put out their injury news unless it's a press conference, which is fair enough. But again, there's not much we can say from it. Obviously, walking off pain-free is okay, but I don't know if it's pain-free, but he's walking without support. Obviously, we've seen Virgil van Dijk walk off without support and then miss months and months of football. Not saying it's anywhere near as bad as that.
We can't tell, but I think is where you're going. Obviously, if he's stretched off with oxygen, probably not good. But if he's walking off, you can maybe take a certain sign from that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the point on Tuanzebe is a good one as well, because I think when Tuanzebe came in, we all thought, well, why has he chose Villa? Why has he not gone to Newcastle? He's not going to play at Villa. But it's almost it's funny how things play out, because now he might get a little run in the team. If Konsa is injured, obviously we've got an international break now, and hopefully Konsa will be fully fit by next week. We'll see. Again, we don't know anything on that. But if not, then Tuanzebe is a more than adequate replacement for Konsa. We know that. Tuanzebe is a top player. Where he would get match minutes in a season was fully reliant on injuries, to be honest. And maybe this is his break. You never know. Tuanzebe could keep Konsa out the team. Unlikely, but you wouldn't put it past him. We know the levels that Tuanzebe can reach. So yeah.
Yeah, another kind of disruptive note then, of course, is the fact that Emi Buendia and Emiliano Martinez have been allowed to join the Argentine national football team for their matches this international break. Of course, that's going to cause disruption on the political side of things because of their listing under England's kind of travel guidance and the fact they are playing in I think it's red list countries at this point. Whatever you make of that, it's still a situation that Aston Villa have to contend with and allow. It's caused almost a diplomatic spat between FIFA and the Premier League as well as the EFL, who haven't allowed certain players to attend. It's a hard one, isn't it? Because Buendia, of course, probably hasn't broken through into that first team as much as Martinez has, who's now seemingly a legend of Argentine international football, standing on the shoulders of giants there with Lionel Messi. But that they have broken. Martinez has broken through, and their place is there that they want to keep and progress and be a part of that international football team that wants to do so much better than it has done in recent years, and of course play alongside Messi playing these international football matches. I find it hard. The club versus country argument's always hard, but I find it hard to turn down that opportunity for them, despite what's going on. If you catch what I mean, John, I feel like you might have a different opinion here, but if it was me, it was a really difficult one because you've got the Premier League saying they and absolutely no, because it's of a disruption it could cause to actual fixtures. outside of the international break. But I don't know where you stand with this, John. I think some fans are furious. Some fans are like, let them go. They've earned the opportunity. I feel like it would be hard to block them, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree. I say fair play to them. I think the compromise that they've made with the club is very good. I think to only miss one game out of a possible two is a very fair compromise. And I think ultimately a lot of fans have, questioned why they've done it because Villa pay the wage. Villa, are the employer, but no player would sign a contract with a club with the agreement of not playing for the national team. They sign that contract knowing that when an international break comes and they're selected, they will go on international break with their country. So to then not allow a player to do that would be harsh, in my opinion. I understand that it's COVID and we all have to be extra safe and careful, but they're only following rules by self-isolating for 10 days afterwards. So I don't really buy that argument. And after the Copa America, when Emi Martinez wins the tournament and stars in it, Messi calls him a phenomenon. I can't pronounce the word phenomenon.
You can say phenom like me. Just say I just cop out with phenom.
Phenom. Then we all claim Emi Martinez as our own, and we all say, that's our champion. But then when it doesn't suit, some fans can say, well, we shouldn't be doing Argentina duty instead. So I think it's when it suits, it can, it causes a bit of disruption there, of course. But I think ultimately fair play to them. I think they want to represent their nation, and I think it's a positive move from the club as well, because this is only going to put the club in good stead in years to come when we're giving out new contracts to players. We'll be, fully in favour. They'll be fully in favour with us, knowing that we've allowed them to pursue their dreams of representing their country. And for players like Emi Buendia, he could be representing Argentina with Lionel Messi at Qatar 2022. Maybe that he wouldn't have had that opportunity if we didn't allow him to travel. So, in my opinion, fair play to them. They're only missing one game against Chelsea. And I think it'd be very harsh for us to say no to them. I know a lot of clubs have, and that's their own call. But I'm glad that we've come to a very reasonable compromise.
Yeah, I think fans picked up on a tweet, I think by either Argentine news outlet or Argentine, the FA, saying that it was probably causing a conflict and that they would actually play in all of the games. But we'll have to wait and see, because I'm pretty sure if there's been a compromise, Villa have said, and the word that comes out is a fair compromise, and Tyron Mings has said the same. So I think we'll wait and see, but I feel like it won't. That they'll be let back fairly early. They'll play the majority of games, but obviously let back for the one that is causing a problem. But we'll have to wait and see, John. But I'm more positive international news, of course, ignoring the seniors, is that Jacob Ramsey, of course, has been called up for England's under-21 squad. They play Romania in a friendly, and then they have a U21 championship qualifier versus Kosovo. That's Jacob Ramsey then called up as one of England's under-21 midfielders, and he's not alone, because there's a fair few actually to go through. England is none in the under-18 squad. But if you go to the under-19s, you have Carney Chukwuemeka, Philip Marshall, and I don't think there's anyone else in that squad. It's a really difficult. Aaron Ramsey, of course. When I see the name Aaron Ramsey on an international team sheet, I always think of the other Aaron Ramsey, but this is England, not Wales. England's under-20 squad, of course, Kane Kettle-Hayden and Jaden Philogene-Bidet, so represented across all at most levels of the England international setup there, from senior all the way down, John, which is, as we're throwing forward after this international break, hoping for better times. You got an under-21 player, an under-20 player, under-19 player, can't argue. And an England player. Hopefully, if Mings is attending, can't argue with that, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that goes on to the point again about do we want to block these players and their pathways? There's plenty of talks with, for example, Philogene Bidet. Do we need another winger to have almost 3 wingers per position, 2 wingers per position? But you can't forget that these guys, when they're given opportunity, more often than not, they're probably going to take it. And we'll never see them until they're 21 or 22 if we don't give them the opportunity this season or next season, the seasons after. But no, it's brilliant to see, young lads getting in the youth teams, speaking to different people at Villa's Academy and other academies across the West Midlands as well in the last year. They're all buzzing about the talent coming through Birmingham now, and there's a second city. Which is obviously great to see. We haven't had it too good in the last decade, actually, but now there seems to be so much coming through, and that's a massive well done to Villa for investing so much into the academy. Nassef Suarez and Wes Eden's, really looking at it and using the academy as a massive positives for the club. And again, it's in the reason we don't have to spend 200 million every summer when you've got these young lads coming through and developing at their own rates, and they've got their own qualities, their own youthful exuberance, and bringing that into the team. There's nothing better than that. I think Buendia said after the game at the weekend as well about how much of a lift it gives all the senior players as well to have these young lads buzzing around, wanting to learn different things from them. It gives everyone a massive lift. So yeah, it's only a positive thing that we have all these young stars playing for England as well.
The future's very bright. Aston Villa, it just might be not the October future, more so the 2022, March future, January future. We'll look forward to it, though. It's a really exciting time to be a Villa fan, in my opinion. I do remember hyped academy sets and, your Callum O'Hare, your Rashawn Hepburn-Murphy. Going further back like that, when, Chris Hurd, Gary Garner, everyone, D'Alfonso were breaking through. I remember all the hype. And you have to say, over by and large, the fact that a lot of footballers come through the Villa Academy and then earn a living playing football is a really positive sign. If we can boost that now to earning that living at Premier League level, which it looks like a good set of them might be able to, fingers crossed, they're putting their best foot forward. It's going to be a bright future, John. But I just wanted to end on a quick note about Brentford, because I know it was a bit of a dry match, actually, in terms of analysing and talking points coming from it. It seemed like there was more kind of controversy over refereeing decisions, injuries, mistakes, rather than the actual gameplay. But I just wanted to end on a quick note. How can you sum that match up in 3 or 4 words?
Oh, you put me on the spot there. A decent result.
Oh, fair play. Mine was silly little game.
There we go. Love that.
It's just one of them stupid little Premier League games. August. It's like the Paul Lambert days when you was unbeaten into the first international break, absolutely buzzing. You don't win another game since, and he's sacked like in February. And it's like, look, we'll take the even footing, 1-1-1 across the board, 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. Plenty more to come and plenty more to improve on, I think, as a result. Hopefully deadline day answers a few questions. If not, got to trust in the squad. If you're not trusting in the manager and trusting in recruitment, you got to trust that the squad can hopefully plug any perceived gaps, because there's a lot of football to be played between now and the next transfer window. And even now, Villa could pull off a surprise. There's money to buy a midfielder. They've said, even though they're not interested in a Curtis Jones of Liverpool, there's money to spend. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if any offers come in and if they're worth thinking about for Aston Villa. We'll see if they put any offers that are worth other teams considering as well. But it'd be nice to have that deadline day signing that isn't, unfortunately, for him, Paul Habas. So, we'll have hopefully someone who can make a bit more of an impact. Fair play to him. But yeah, John, thank you very much for coming on today and summing up Brentford, the international break and the transfer window. You can follow us both at James Rushton there and at John Townley 11 on Twitter. It's at Claret Blue Pod to follow the Twitter of the podcast, not just us. And yeah, again, up the Villa. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you all soon.
Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.